Hello and welcome to another edition of Spore Journeys. I'm Andrew from the Mycelium Hub, and it's my great pleasure to have Nick Hayes on the podcast today. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Andrew, how's it going? Thank you for the invitation.
Very good. Well, we're both dialing in from the UK, and we're both hot, which is kind of unusual for the UK. But it's a hot, stuffy day today, a humid day today. So let's see. Even though it's even the evening now, but anyway, Nick, thank you very much for joining the call. It'd be great actually if you could just start off with just quick introduction and background to yourself, and then we can dive into some cool topics.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my name's Nick. I'm 38-year-old Brit, and currently I am running a YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey channel. And I'm also running an online community. And I'm doing this while also working a full-time job. And it is my intention to escape the full-time job because it's a bit against my morals and ethics, really. And I want to do something that is more aligned with my passions, my skills, and what I think people need. So I'm kind of on that journey. I'm part of the way through it. I've been doing Haze Reviews, which is the name of my podcast and my project, I should say, for almost about a year and a half now, just over a year and a half. So we'll be coming up on the 2 year anniversary, and I've learned a lot, and I love doing it, and I can't wait to see where it takes me.
Great. Yeah. So we're definitely going to dig deeper into that in a minute. And obviously for our listeners, people are looking for something to do something different. They don't want to be just stuck in their kind of corporate jobs and just waiting for something to happen. And you're a great example of someone who's well on that journey. And I think everyone's will be able to learn a lot from kind of some of the lessons you've learned as well as some of the good things that you've been doing as well, because it's not a straight line, as we know. And it's if anyone says this is an easy thing to extract yourself and to do something different, it's then I think they're lying really, or they're certainly not telling the whole truth of it. You have to work hard at it, right? And I think that's where it starts. For me, it's like this kind of your passion. You've become passionate about doing something, and you're building the skills to you've built the skills over the last kind of period of time to actually put this in place. So can you talk a bit about, kind of what is Hayes Reviews? What was the genesis for that? Why did you even where did that come from?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So Haze Reviews, as in its current form, because it has sort of changed and shifted, like you say, it's not a linear path. It's a case of start moving and taking action and then course correct and adjust as you go. That's what it was like for me. But in its current form, it's a weekly live stream. And I usually go for about 3 hours on a Friday night. And what I do is I read books. And that's basically it in a nutshell. But they're not any old books. They're kind of often books that are out of print, hard to find, controversial books, books that deal with topics that may go against some of the mainstream narratives that we get through schools, through media, and even in the university curriculums, right? So I'm very interested in topics that are going against what we're told to believe and think about the world. Because I think people who start to pay attention and ask some questions might find that the mainstream narratives don't always give answers that make sense. And so you go looking further afield and you might discover people like James Corbett of CorbettReport.com. You might discover Richard Grove of Grand Theft World and many, many other names that I could mention. But I mentioned those two in particular because that's what happened to me. I started asking questions and I thought this thing on the news doesn't make sense. And I want to actually find a explanation of things that isn't contradictory. Who's providing that? And I found James Corbett, and he was putting up his podcast for free. Everything he does, his documentaries, he put it out for free. And underneath it, he put a list of references and footnotes and resources. And he says, "Don't believe me. Go and read this stuff. Make your own mind up." And I thought, isn't that interesting? He's not just telling me what to believe, telling me what to think. He's telling me, look at the evidence, make my own mind up. And somewhere along the way, I followed James, and he was on Richard Grove's Grand Theft World podcast, and they were talking about books, and they were flashing different books up on the camera, saying, "Have you read this one? And what about that one?" And I thought, wow, these topics that I know nothing about, and I didn't I consider myself to be sort of well read and educated. I know a bit about everything, but I was shocked to find out about certain aspects of history that I'd never heard of. The classic one I always mention is the paperclip, Operation Paperclip, to bring the sort of Nazi scientists over to various allied countries and given lucrative jobs and contracts and in various institutions, right? I thought, how is how did I not know about this? And there's books written on it, you know, and that's what got me really interested in books. And I thought, wow, I'm going to start collecting these and preserving them and helping other people learn about this information. Because if I'm unaware of it, then there's going to be other people out there who have the same feeling as me. Like, why didn't I know this? How was it kept from me? And I thought I could start creating a resource for people to benefit from the information in these books if they didn't have the time or the appetite or the attention span to read them themselves. We're all busy. We've all got hectic schedules and jobs and side hustles and families and all that good stuff. So I thought maybe I can perform a kind of service there and make these a little more accessible and widely available than they would be if there was nobody doing this.
Uh, yeah, well, there's a lot in there. I think that you're, picking up on the point about going to this source of information, and again, talking about James and Richard, obviously, I know we've got Richard in common from some work we've done before. But it's going back to evidence base, and that's the thing with books as well, right? Especially these older books, right? That's where the source of the information is, and so you can validate. There is a way of trust but verify the information, which is so difficult online today with the fact with AI, with anything. I could be talking to you as a bot, for quite frankly, at
Yeah.
the moment. We could be having a conversation. I'm sure in not too distant future, there'll be bots talking to bots, and people will find that good entertainment, and they'll be having very philosophical conversations. So I like the fact that you're going back onto that, and it's a dying art a little bit as well. I think I mean, people actually picking up a book. I know, like people at my age, you said you're 38. I'm kind of in my 50s now, and I know like the older generation tend to like still pick up books, but the younger generation probably got no, don't have so much appetite, and then you're not quite sure what you're getting online. So I really like the fact that you go into a book and you're actually doing something, kind of going back in time a little bit, but in a way,
Mhm.
it's so needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the problems that it addresses are really impacting all of us on a daily basis now. So I mentioned attention span.
Yes.
Um, this is a real problem. People struggle to focus and concentrate. I notice when I'm talking to certain people, they can't let me get to the end of a sentence without interrupting me because their brain is like, I've got a thing I want to say and I have to say it. And they have to just cut me off and start saying their thing. So social media and this swipe left, swipe right, short content, this overproduced, slick access to infinite content as well. It's really ruined our attention span. And I see a remedy to that is to pick up a book and read it and focus on the words and activate your mind and your imagination. Maybe you'll learn some new words. Maybe you will find a turn of phrase that just strikes you in a certain way and hits you and seems beautiful to you. Maybe you'll discover something about your history, your past, your heritage that you didn't know that will reframe your entire world because that was my experience when I started learning about, for example, uh, the book Hidden History, which is about the origins of the First World War and how many English diplomats wanted it to happen and were maneuvering, pulling strings, making promises, deals in order to get this war started. That's not the narrative we get
Mm.
in school. We get told that, oh, the bad people over there started it, and we good people went over there and put them in their place twice. And it's way more nuanced and complex than that. There were more agendas at play. And so reading a book like that really it reframes your identity as a British
Mm.
person, right? It did for me when I read it. And that was one of the first books that I reviewed on the channel was Hidden History, in fact. So it addresses a lot of questions about identity, uh, but also the physical aspects, the psychological aspects of being able to pay attention. And then there's a lot of other benefits like learning new words, being able to speak more coherently and persuasively and logically, because most books are written logically. They have an order to them, and there's big ideas and paragraphs, and they're linked together. And so it's a way to pull back from this instant gratification digital realm and plug into something a little slower pace, but that is a little healthier, I think, over the long run.
Yeah, yeah. Just as an anecdote, you mentioned there about like waiting for someone to finish talking before they interrupt. And I learned a great thing about a year ago is that if you want to, when we listen to somebody else, often you're like your mind's thinking and you're wanting to say something, but you do want to respect someone, let them finish what they're talking about. So a way of like holding your thought is pinching. I don't know if you've heard this one before. If you just pinch it, then you're just right. I've got that thought, and it allows me still to listen to you and engage with you, but I know that I've got this to come back to when you finish. So anyway, that's
Nice.
kind of
That's a great tip.
it's yeah,
I
it's
could think of lots of people that I'm going to teach that to.
yes, it's a good little hack, and it was at one of our events in Sweden, our emergence events in Sweden. Had a wonderful guy called Joseph that taught us that because we had this thing where people were like not giving each other a chance to speak. He said, here's a technique." So and it works for sure. So. Yeah, I love the books, and I think you did. You started off, your career in teaching as well. Is that right? And so maybe you've always had a passion for language and words, and in any case, and learning.
Yes. So it goes back a little bit further. So when I went to university, I did an English literature degree.
Yes.
I didn't really have a career in mind because anyone who does wouldn't pick English literature. But I enjoyed the subject. I liked reading. I had some fantastic teachers who really got me interested in various authors and poetry. And I was a real big fiction guy. I preferred novels and I had my favorite writers, and I was reading mostly fiction. And I went to university and studied crime literature, and I really got interested in the William Blake, his poetry. He was an amazing guy. He was an artist, and he invented his own way of creating his printed books, which he would create the printing plates by putting acid on this metal, and then he would print it onto the paper and color it in, and each copy would be handmade and slightly different, and so he was before the mass printing, and and everything he did was unique and special to that particular copy that he made. So really interesting guy. But then after university, I wasn't quite sure what I could do with my English degree, and somewhere along the line I discovered that if you've got an English degree, they'll take you as an English teacher in Asia
Mm.
fairly easily. You don't need to have a teaching qualification even. It's like, oh, you're a native speaker and you got a degree in English, come over here and teach. And so I thought, yeah, why not? I haven't traveled much, and I just basically jumped in with both feet, moved to South Korea on a year contract, and just got the bug, and then stayed out in that part of the world for 6 years.
Right. Right. And where else did you go then in
From
other?
there, I
Yeah.
went to, yeah, so I was in Yecheon in South Korea, which is kind of in the middle of the country,
Okay.
near the biggest city near that was Daegu. And then from there, I went to Bangkok for a year. From there, I traveled around Malaysia and did a bit of sort of backpacking and working away with various like not volunteer jobs exactly, but kind of just being a snorkeling instructor, these kind of jobs, just living on a beach, that kind of life. And that was good for a while. And then I moved to Hanoi in northern Vietnam,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I stayed there for a good few years before I came back to England,
Yeah.
and various trips and holidays, in and around various places. But it was good.
Yeah. Well, what do you think was a key learning from that part of your life, or was that just your youth and just exuberant youth and just getting that out of your system,
I
but
was learning a lot. I did a
yeah,
lot of growing up.
yeah,
What
right,
One of the biggest things that I realized was that the culture you're born into is we download it as being truth in a lot of cases. And it's only when we get outside of it and view it as an outsider that we realize a lot of it is arbitrary and not necessarily things that we have to do or believe or continue. So that's what I really took away was like being immersed in these other cultures that had a totally different way of doing things and all various rules. Like Thailand, you shouldn't In Thailand, the foot, because it's closest to the ground, is considered the dirtiest part of the body. And so if you point at things with your feet, it's considered very rude,
Right. Mm.
right? Not that we go around pointing at things with our feet very often, but just little like tidbits like that. For example, another one in Vietnam, the pronouns that they use are very interesting. So in English, we've got I, and we all use the pronoun I to refer to ourselves. Over there, the pronoun changes depending on who you're speaking to, with reference to the age of the person you're speaking to. So if they're older than you will use the pronoun M, and that's in any case if someone's older than you. If you're older than them and you're a male, then you might use ang. If you're and it changes. So you've got to know all these different pronouns, but it just reinforces this awareness of age and authority
Mm.
and respect for elders, because that's built big, literally built into the grammar of the language that they use. So seeing these differences, seeing the way things can be done, an alternative way of doing things, the good and the bad, it gives you this broader perspective where you can take the good things and then you can reject the bad things, kind of like the Bruce Lee methodology, right? You know, incorporate what is good and get rid of what is not so helpful. And that was the biggest paradigm shift, was to be like, oh, I can question everything, and I can sort of reject what I don't like and incorporate what I do like. And just through doing that process, I will become more of an individual than if I just am born into a culture and accept it hook, line, and sinker, the whole package, and never question it and never think outside of it and never critically analyze it, and just go along with that being, well, that's just the way it is and that's the way we do things. So I think I grew a lot as an individual and came into my own, and just through that process. And it was challenging. There were times where I missed home. There were times where I couldn't really communicate properly. There were times where I was ill and just nothing around me made sense. But for the most part, I met amazing people. I was very lucky and blessed to be well taken care of by locals. Wherever I was living, I made good friends with local people on the ground, and I was always treated well. And that was another thing. It broke down this idea of us and them, like that the people in that country over there are bad and we're the good guys. And I realized that basically the world over, people are just people trying to get by, and they've got largely the same interests, which is like, I want to have a family and an income and a bit of leisure time and a nice place to live and some food in my belly, the basics for the most part. And
Mm.
it's only these like um, sort of the people at the very top of the pyramid who are kind of steering us to conflict with each other. And that was another thing that I saw very clearly, was that people are good. But people have the same faults all over the world. Don't get me wrong. But for the most part, people have way more in common than they do different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, like I kind of resonate with that a lot. I think I can, I think you could go pretty much anywhere in the world, regardless of where there's conflict. And if you're in trouble and you need help, then someone would help, because it's in our innate nature to help people as well. And you're right. You have various groups that are wanting to control the narrative, control how you're feeling, and so that goes back a bit to some of the your books and some of the things you're trying to do here, where you're trying to actually open people's eyes a little bit, that maybe what you're being told is not 100% accurate, and you should challenge those assumptions and think about, how can I be sure that that is, but we grow up, get up in the morning, we have our belief systems, and then but we need to be flexible enough to know that to shift our belief if there's new information that comes in that kind of compromises that. And so I think that yeah, that's really really interesting. So did it reshape a little bit? I mean, this kind of journey for knowing the truth or becoming the freedom, for seeking freedom, etc. Was that kind of born there, or or did that come kind of maybe when you came back to the UK, were you starting to become, if you like, aware that something was going on?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good question. So I've thought about this, and I think I can trace it back to a friend of mine introducing me to the comedian Bill Hicks when I was at university
Yeah.
in Liverpool when I was studying my degree, and we were in a band together. And he mentioned something, oh, it's like that Bill Hicks joke. And I said, who's that? And he just stopped dead. And he was like, you don't know who Bill Hicks is? I was like, no, I never heard of him. He was like, follow me. And we went and he played the CD Rant in E minor, which is an amazing album because it's Bill Hicks's uh, jokes from his live stand up interspersed with his guitar playing and his guitar compositions. It's really great. And so his perspectives on drugs, on war, on governments really got me questioning and thinking differently. And then from there, while I was traveling, so that was before I moved to Asia, but while I was traveling, I was listening to a lot of Alan Watts, the spiritual entertainer, and his talks, many, many lectures on sort of Zen Buddhism and Taoism and meditation. I really enjoyed those. And that gave me a whole new perspective of, as well, and helped me to focus a little more on the moment, think a little less about the past, and be less anxious about the future, and just realize that there is this eternal now is what we're living in. And that can be a very important perspective to be able to assume. Not always. You don't want to always just be blissed out in meditation, living in the moment and never getting things done. But it is a very useful to be able to come to that when you need to, if you're being overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed, or some other um, emotion that's kind of getting out of control, then you can get a rein on that by bringing yourself, centering yourself into presence. So Alan Watts um, was great. And then around that time, while I was living abroad, I also started listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, and that was quite eye opening because he was interviewing people like Graham Hancock,
Hmm.
the sort of alternative archaeologist, talking about, oh, the true age of the Sphinx is much older than they're telling us, and then Randall Carlson and his catastrophism and his analysis of canyons and landscapes, showing that various things happened and how long ago they happened. And this started making me question certain things about history, and that we've been told that were mainstream and we accepted. And I remember that time as well, hearing those things on Joe Rogan. I was like, wow, there's going to be some big shift happening because these things are public now, And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. And then I remember there was a guy on there called Stephen Greer, and he was talking about how UFO disclosure was coming. It was imminent. I mean, this was like 12 years ago. He was like, UFO disclosure is imminent, and it's amazing what I'm telling you here today. And I stayed up all night listening to that because I was like, oh my God, they've actually been in touch with aliens. Are they going to announce it? So I got into Joe Rogan, and then when I moved back to the UK, got married, and then we got locked down, and that was when I really started paying attention and asking questions and really trying to get to the bottom of things, because the whole lockdown, keep people at home, scare them away, shut down the churches and the gyms, but keep the off licenses and the supermarkets open. Like, there were so many questions, none of it made any sense, that I had to go looking elsewhere for better information that wasn't contradictory. And so that led me down new avenues of research and learning. And it was during that time that I started collecting the books as well. So yeah, I think it would go back to Bill Hicks
Yeah.
at the very earliest point, and then it's been a gradual sort of journey since then.
I think once you start, you start, yeah, once you I kind of go down a rabbit hole. It's a bit like when I discovered Bitcoin. It was like, oh, now I understand, I just spent months and months just, and I'm still, that's just going to be a never-ending rabbit hole to go down with the crypto industry. But it's the same thing when you find something that you're sure a source of information that challenges something that's kind of out there as kind of common knowledge, and then it just if you can then validate that and have another corroborative resource to support that, then I think that it just opens, just that, okay, then I need to question other things as well, right? And it just allows you to, and I think it's like sometimes some of the stuff that you find out, you probably wish you'd kind of not looked under that particular stone, but once you can't unknow, when start to know things, you can't unknow them, and actually I feel much better kind of being aware and knowing things than not, but it's like it goes back to like this you know, across all areas of news now, you've got across all sides, whether left or right or whatever it is, you're not quite sure just from that first piece of information, if someone's telling you something, it's like, well, who are you to say, well, first of all, who is the person telling you the information, and then it's like, where did they get their information from? And then you need to do it across all it, even if there's things that kind of maybe sometimes support your view, you just need to sometimes just make sure that you're happy that that is the truth before you move on, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's not because it's otherwise, and that gives you balance and. It gives you a little bit of thing. So how do you answer people that maybe you're getting this on your YouTube because I guess you'll get good, you'll get very people that are supportive, maybe people that are less supportive of some of the stuff you're doing. But what's your response to accusations of conspiracy theorizing, or
Hmm.
do you have anyone that kind of any people that are kind of challenging what you're doing online or anything else, but it just generally, even if you're kind of having conversations that might
Hmm.
be considered conspiracy theory,
Yeah.
how do
It
you
does.
respond to that?
So my the response online hasn't been that bad at all. I've had a few people pop up and say things that they don't like what I'm saying, and I usually offer to have a call with them and hear them out, and they usually don't want to do that. So that tells me a lot about their intentions right away. A lot of people prefer to hide behind their keyboard and make some comments and throw some accusations or some slanderous words across at the other person. They don't want to get on a call and have a calm adult conversation to see where the differences lie. That hasn't happened very often to me. I think people tend to appreciate that what I'm doing is bringing them books, and I'll try and be very open about my opinion on things, and I'll say this is my opinion. Uh, but most of the time, I'm just focusing on what's in the book or what's on. For example, I use Wikipedia quite a lot, and I use Wikipedia to point out to people that I'm not really theorizing about anything here. you know, I'm showing you what's written in a book, and I'm showing you what's written on Wikipedia, and I'm telling you my opinion of it.
Mm.
I'm not theorizing what might be written, or I kind of I try and point to things that are real world. That's why I use, I like to have physical books to show to people. And I try to stay away from too much speculation and guesswork. And so that helps largely because I point to historical figures or groups, and I'll give my opinion like, oh, I think these people are probably up to no good. But for the most part, because I'm pointing at things that exist, I don't tend to get poo-pooed that much.
Mm.
But the other like important response to this label of conspiracy theory is it's worth everyone who uses that term to know where it came from and how it was started, and that it came out of a document. I don't know the name of it. I think it's an FBI document, and it was written in that document that to prevent people questioning the official narrative of the JFK assassination, we could use this term conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorist to denigrate and dissuade other people from looking into it. And that's the weaponization of that term. And when anyone uses that term, all they're saying is, I don't want to think, I don't want to look at the evidence, I don't want to make my own mind up. I'm going to dismiss what you're saying. You're a conspiracy theorist. Bye bye. And that's
Mm.
all I hear if they use that term. Uh,
Mm.
because I'm just trying to point out evidence, and I'm trying to be like I'm trying to share my amazement that these things about the things that I'm learning. Operation Paperclip's a great example. When I first heard about that, I just couldn't believe that was true. But it is. It's very well verified in mainstream books. So I'm just trying to share my sort of incredulity and amazement, and work through these books in a way that is, methodical and not too sensational. I don't try to be, I don't try to make all those thumbnails with crazy expressions where I'm like, you're not going to believe what I just read in page 53 or whatever. So I'm a very different sort of um, style. I'm not just looking for clicks and views. I
Mm.
actually want to help people understand and learn more about reality. And so having a methodical approach and relying on things that exist is a good way to avoid that accusation.
Yeah.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
always work.
Um, if someone was gonna just want to stick on the Hayes reviews a bit now, but I mean, if someone wanted, was listening to this and they just said, "Oh, well, look, yeah, I'm actually quite interested in, picking up a book or two and starting the process. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm kind of curious what these guys are saying. There's definitely something in that. I've always thought there's something that's not quite right about some part of the way the systems and the current institutions work. Have you got any kind of suggestions, a good starter, what two or three books that you might recommend to people that might be good ones rather than go straight into some of the more complex ones? Is there
Heavy
anything that
stuff.
you could? I mean, I know you've got so many. It's hard. It's a hard to answer that. But any like
Yeah,
favorite
which
style
springs
ones
to
that
mind?
you'd recommend?
I think I think the hidden history book that I mentioned earlier is a
Yeah.
great one to start on because presuming you've got some knowledge of World War One, this is around the time where things, the current situation we're living through, sort of can be traced back to. And this is Cecil Rhodes and his successor, Lord Milner, and their whole entourage. And this book's really good. It's very accessible. It's well written. It's a bit of a page turner, and each chapter has summary points at the end, so you can just get the download of the chapter. And it's really well backed up with other books and papers and diaries and things like that. So that's a nice way to get into it because really you just want to find one event that you thought you understood and just read something that puts it in a new light and helps you realize and helps you go, oh, I didn't know the full picture here. And what I assumed about this event is actually not the case. Another good book could be Colin Simpson's book, Lusitania, which I read on the channel. And it's quite a short book. And that just tells you the whole story of the sinking of the Lusitania from a different angle, from many different angles, to the point where by the end of the book, you realize something doesn't add up here. The mainstream media came out with a certain narrative of this event. And yet, when you actually look at the diaries and the records and the shipping manifestos and the records held by the cargo companies, it doesn't align with what the public were told. So it's about finding these events, finding a book that explains a more detailed picture and realizing that that mainstream version is often very low resolution, oversimplified, and biased, and only takes is one event. So I would recommend to people just think of an event that you might have some questions about or you're interested in, and then just start researching there. And then inevitably, you'll find other avenues to explore because the best way to do this is always to follow our curiosity.
Mm.
And so jump in at one point that looks, look at the water and see where it looks warmest to you and jump in there and then just take it from
And
there. But always follow your curiosity. And
yes.
so there's two places you could start.
No, that's good. Thank you for that. That's good. We'll put those links to those in the show notes. Um, so again, let's talk about the yeah, it was a passion project. You kind of moved into this now. You're going to get it going. If you had your time, and you've been doing it for like a year and a half, 2 years. So if you had your time again, what would you say some of the things you've learned through that process? You said it's taken a number of iterations. So what mistakes have you made, if you like, that you would, if you had your time again, you'd try to avoid?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. So when I first started, I was just doing book reviews. I would read the book, make some notes, highlight some pages, and then I would record myself speaking for an hour, just saying what I thought of the book, reading a few quotes, telling people why I thought it was interesting. Basically, like me reacting to a book. I wasn't giving academic analysis. I'm not critiquing it. I'm not sort of summarizing it. It's more like, I read this, and this is the crazy stuff that I read, and I want to share it with you because I think you should know about it. Um, and that's how it started. And then I found that I was using OBS, which is an
Mm,
open source
mhm,
piece of software for, it does all sorts of things. But one of the things it does is it's a live streaming studio. And there's a little button in there that just said go live. And that was when I moved over to live streaming. And that's what I found I really enjoyed was the challenge of not having a plan and just starting to talk and seeing what comes out and having to try and summarize and remember the things you've read, trying to recap, make connections in real time, trying to be entertaining, trying to be coherent for the people watching. So I think if I went back and changed things, I would have started live streaming sooner, and I would spend more time making it look a little more polished than it does. Because what I've got now is it's all homegrown. It's all my own efforts, and it's not the slickest production, but it's very authentic to me because I've done everything. I made all the graphics. I put the music that I use is all my own music, and so it's this labor of love that I've put together, but it's not very slick. So I think a lot of people are like, because they're so used to nice graphics and sound effects and lots of camera angles and crisp, clear video and all this high production stuff, which is affordable to do in a home studio these days. And my thing is a little more rickety and less polished. So I might, if I did things differently, I might put a little more effort into the polish just to get it, give it that extra shine. But at the same time, you know, it's what I've done. It's what I know how to do. So I kind of like it as it is. But I do have that problem of being like, I get really attached to things. You know, I don't like to throw things, old T-shirts away that I've had for a long time. You know, I'm like, oh, this T-shirt's been with me for so long, and so I sometimes don't modernize and change and adapt and update and upgrade things. So maybe having a better system for keeping up to date with the latest with the latest possibilities, because there's so much you can do with live streaming these days from home. It's amazing and such a blessing to be alive in these times where we have access to these gadgets.
Yeah, I was just thinking as I'm looking at the screen here, my post-production partner is going to will have a criticize me because I've probably not got the quite the right settings on my blurring of the screen and everything else. So it just brings back to memory that actually, yeah, could be slicker myself on this as well. But the point is here that whilst there's lessons learned, you know, at the same time, far too many people wait till things are perfect before they do something, and I think that that's the other lesson. You know, certainly from my perspective, is that sometimes you just got to get your hands dirty and do it, and you'll find your way, you know. And even if you might look back on some of these things and be a bit cringe, you know, be a bit cringy at the time. It's like you can only learn by doing the things, right? And I would imagine your followers are and the people that come and join your channel. I'm sure you've got a number of people that are kind of now part of the family, the Nick Hayes family, on the book reviews, and they like your style because it's authentic. And if everything's shiny and perfect, then that's not really how we are as humans anyway. So I don't,
Yeah.
yes. So
And I think another aspect of that is that now we're rolling into this AI driven world where things tend to be shiny and polished when they're produced by AI because it's getting so good now that something that's a little rough around the edges from the heart will stand out as authentic. I
mm,
think
mm.
nobody's looking at my stuff and going, "Was that made by AI?" You know, so that's a good thing from my point of view. I think that you, if you can stand out as being a real human being with something to say that isn't mediated by software, you know, that's increasingly going to be rarer. I think in this day and age, because I notice people using all sorts of apps and language models to create their whatever their blog posts or their various pieces of content that they put out, and you can see AI's fingerprints all over it. There's a number of tells that give it away, and you start to see that wow, this is everyone's doing this now, and where's just the earnest, heartfelt, authentic human creativity? Where's it going to be after all this use of AI? And I don't think it'll be stamped out entirely, but it certainly will not be the same because people are very quick to jump on these kind of tools, which is fine. But I was just thinking the other day that I wrote a post that I sent out to my online community, and I wrote the whole thing myself. Did a little did a few edits, and then boom, I sent it out. And I just thought, actually, not using AI is well, using like AI that produces written content is a bit of a blessing because the people who don't use it are going to stand out,
Mm.
right? The people who are really, when you got your typos in there, your grammar mistakes, when you're using unusual word pairings and strange phrases that is going to stand out, and people are going to read it and go, "Oh, this is Nick. This is Nick. This is not Nick telling an AI to to write a thing for him," which I think is we're starting to be the case a lot in a lot of places now. So authenticity, this is the time to be authentic, to find your voice and to really put yourself out there in whatever way you can. And I think people are going to start turning to that as they realize that all this slick AI stuff is actually becomes a bit, it's, I don't know, it's like being in a theme park or something. You know, it's really exciting and fun, but actually everything's just plastic and there's no real food there, and it's a bit tiring after a while because it's all fake.
Mm. Yeah. Actually, moving on like, how do you? And we talked a bit about this, but your shows are about 3 hours long on a Friday night or something like that, and you. So how do you balance that depth with like YouTube's like short attention
Yeah, that's a good
disorder
question.
syndrome?
There was a
Who's
time,
got time for 3 hours, or unless they can put you on like, no, like two X, so you speak really slowly. So when it's 2X, then it'll be a normal speed. Maybe that's the
sound
way
like a
to do it.
chipmunk.
Maybe that's the way to do it. But yeah,
Yeah,
how do you
I
think
do
about that?
view my content as a workout for your attention span. You know, I say this to people, and I do make clips. I'll make shorter clips, but even the clips that I pull are typically in half an hour, 45 minutes, so even they're long. And I get it. Not everyone has time for long form content, but if you do not make time for any long form, and I'm not saying mine, but any, you're doing yourself a disservice, I think, because there's certain things you can't boil down to 30 seconds.
Mm,
There are concepts and aspects of history and narratives and characters and people and events and descriptions that are worth your time to listen to and understand and hear explained by people who know what they're talking about. Now, I'm not trying to pass myself off as an expert. I'm just a guy with a mic and a bunch of books, right? But some things are hard to understand and complicated, and people should be wary of never investing time to understand things, whether that's my content or reading a book or spending some time on other people's long form content. So I did experiment with shorts for a little while, and they got a bit of traction. And I enjoyed making them because there are AI tools that do that make that very easy, and
mm,
they'll just spit out 10 or 20 shorts for you, and you can just edit them very quickly and put them up. Um, I don't do that so much anymore. I tend to think that the people with the attention span will find me, and if they don't have an attention span for my work, then good luck. There's plenty of other people out there to spend your, tiny attention span on.
yeah.
But I do try and break up my shows. So I do them in halves. I have a introductory, what I call the preamble ramble. And that's usually me going over news stories or articles or Wikipedia pages or some kind of contextual information. Or perhaps I might just do a monologue summarizing what we've read before or my thoughts on something or recapping. And the second half of the show will be reading from a book typically. And I'll do about an hour and a half with the book cam, and we'll just read it and I'll make some notes as I go along and give some commentary. So it is long, but I think it's worthwhile. And yes, people can always watch the replay, put me on double speed, and get it twice as fast.
And do you get like interact? Are the audience or people that are kind of in live with you, are you having any interaction with them as you're going through the analysis, or is it just more again you're just doing that stuff and you see comments, you might comment on it, or is there some kind of active conversation going on with the audience there?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I love that, and I'll often ask for help with things if I remember something but I can't quite recall the name or the person or the document, then I'll say, hey, remember that thing? Does anyone know what it is? And somebody will quick-fingered person will find it and give me the reference, and then I can include it in the broadcast. So it's really a group effort. It's kind of like a group learning journey. I will ask for words. If I don't know the meaning of them, I'll ask someone to look it up. If I come across a word in the book that I don't know, and then people just offer their comments, their ideas, and they make connections. So it's a real group experience. And it's why I think people tune in, because I was as surprised as anyone when people started tuning into my live streams. I'll be honest. I was like, oh my God, people are showing up for this. This is crazy. But I think people appreciate
Mm,
not being just bombarded with razzle dazzle graphics and information, and just the slower pace. And also just that, like, I'm not the expert. We all have our own opinions and ideas. Let's connect the dots together.
mm,
Let's throw around what we've learned and suggest resources to each other. And it's more of a, I guess it's more of a mycelium way of doing things. It's a little more crowdsourced and a
mm,
crowd effort. I mean, I'm the one here on the screen with the mic, but it's really about people showing up, participating, and offering what they've learned, and reacting and responding to what I'm reading. Because sometimes people remind me of things and make connections to what I'm reading that are really valuable.
mm.
And I always try and keep an eye on the chats to read that stuff out. And sometimes we just have a good laugh because people make jokes and comments and keep it lighthearted. Because some of these subjects can be quite
Yeah, deep.
upsetting and dark, but
Yeah, yeah.
we've got to try and keep it lighthearted and enjoyable, while we stare into the abyss.
I think when anyone's learning something, then they're engaged, because it's like, oh shit, I'm learning something here. This is like, and this is important, and it's important for me to kind of get that. Yeah, I think it's great. I've seen, I've kind of known you a couple of years, but I've seen that kind of journey that you've been on, and it's been great to see what you're doing. And talking about kind of attention span and everything else. I mean, I think something that's come recently is also this some work you're doing around kind of screen time and kind of how to be a bit more optimized with that. Do you want to just talk a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've been reaching out to people. I've actually been invading people's inboxes on Instagram and trying to find people to work with as a coach. And I've been calling it a screen addiction coach. And I found a few people to work with, and it's been very rewarding to have conversations with people who consider themselves screen addicts and who feel very, um, well, there's a lot of different words to describe it, but generally they recognize it as a problem in their lives and they want some help. And so I've been having a lot of conversations with people about what does it look like for you? How does it feel? How's it impacting your life? What would your life be like if you didn't have this screen addiction? And people are really desperate. Some people out there are really struggling. They can't put their phone down. They know it's ruining their lives. They know that it's impacting their studies at school, their relationships, their willingness to go outside and make friends and exercise and do all this real world stuff. So it's been quite an eye-opening experience to initiate these conversations and talk to them, because I was thinking of how I could help people. And this was the problem that I see everywhere. And I'm not innocent of it myself. I see it in myself. I also battle with screen addiction because it's like I'm on a laptop all day at work, and then I'm doing this thing in the evening, and I've got a work phone and a personal phone, and it's just everywhere. And and so I've been really paying attention to it and trying to understand it and get to the root of it. And what I'm learning is that it's very much like a lot of other addictions. There's usually some sort of pain or discomfort or unpleasant emotional condition underlying that is that needs to be addressed. So I'm kind of looking at it through the lens of Gabor Mate and his book In the Realm of the Hungry Ghosts, which I think is a really great book on this topic of addiction. And the solutions are different for each person.
Mm.
Um, that's what I'm finding as well. There's no one size fits all approach. So I'm working with people and I'm trying to say, okay, well, what what are you not getting done? And how can we start to structure your life and your days and your routines in a way where we're getting more of that stuff done that you know you should be doing, and de-emphasizing the time spent aimlessly on screens scrolling. But time and time again, one of the things that keeps coming up is shorts. People are finding these YouTube reels and Instagram shorts incredibly difficult to remove, and they're losing 3 4 hours sometimes just one short after another, after another, after
Mm.
another. So it's a huge problem. I haven't got all the answers figured out quite yet, but I am sort of working on my sort of the journey that I envisage is like, okay, you got the screen addiction and it's ruining your life. How about if you had a book reading habit instead? Wouldn't that be a good substitute for the screen addiction? And so right now I'm working on a sort of maybe not a system exactly, but a progression or a course or a training or some sort of methodology to try and bring people on that journey. Because I think most people would probably admit that they'd rather have a reading habit than a screen addiction. So that's what I'm working on currently, and I'm trying to figure out how to offer that to people.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Well, good luck with that. It's a hard one. Well, it's a huge problem across every age demographic as well. It's like
Yeah,
even across all age groups. I think that, I mean, certainly in my cinema hub, it's kind of what we try. We like work with people that are, want to do something different, but we take a holistic life view. So we look at different areas of one's life and say, okay, well, what's working well, what's not working so well, and on the things that aren't working so well, what can we do to do that? We might exchange reading a book for getting out in nature and grounding yourself and doing kind of even breathing properly, or learning how to do something different. But I think it is about getting ourselves away from um, you know, it's so easy to pick up a phone, a phone and or the computer and just, oh yeah, I'll just start having a play around with it, and yes, just disappearing down into the void. And I think I like the point you made about the fact um, it's probably masking something else that's going on. It's almost like a form of escapism. It's you're
mm,
trying to just bury your other troubles somewhere else. Oh, I'll just watch some of this and think that you're actually doing something. It was interesting also when you said the that people are watching these shorts and these Instagram reels, and that is the problem. I thought you were going to say that's actually fine because of people just watch a few of those and it's a shorter period of time. But you're actually saying they're going to go from one short to another short to another short. So actually, that doesn't help them at all. But
mm,
it's a hard one to do because I think you have to also recognize we're in an age where a lot of work is done online, and that's how you are reaching people. Most of your audience is going to be through this through this platform and channel. So in a way, you don't want to kind of like don't get them to ever go on the screen, otherwise they won't watch the content creators out there as well. So
exactly.
it's trying to get that balance right. Um, trying to get that balance right, really, isn't it? So what would you say are some of the best techniques or that you're kind of like trying to think about or to talk to others about in terms of for mental clarity, like in terms of reducing time? You talk about okay, the book. Is there anything else that you thought about that you can encourage people to? I mean, sometimes it might just be as simple as a little timer, isn't it? Like, okay,
Yeah,
I've had my 20 minutes, and it's a bit like, is it Pomodoro? Is that a Pomodoro
that's
technique?
it.
The 25 minutes. I mean, you could do the same thing for screen time, really, couldn't you? Where you could just say, look, I've been on the computer long enough and I need to have now 10 minutes of something else, you know?
Yeah,
So it's just
I
sometimes it
think
might be some simple stuff, really, as much as anything else.
yeah, you touched on it. It's the things that reconnect you with reality. Um, this is really what we're dealing with is that the glowing rectangles are just it's not reality. It's a reflect, it's an image of reality, but it's not reality itself. Like I'm looking at you right now, but I can't reach out and kind of shake your hand. I can't sort of
Mm.
sense your smell or any of these other things that happen when we're in the room together, right? So it's about reconnecting with reality. So one thing I love doing is going on long walks in nature without the phone. Just don't take it. Leave it at home. You mentioned that getting out into nature, breath work is another really powerful one as well. Just box breathing,
Hmm.
or else the extended exhale. The sort of 4-3-7, I think, or whatever. As long as the exhale is longer than the inhale, that's a really good way to downregulate the nervous system and get yourself into a calm kind of state. Um, and other things like board games, great way to pass time in person with other people. You got something to focus on. You can engage, have a bit of competition, have a bit of fun. We're actually quietly living through like a golden era of board games. And not that many people think about it or talk about it, apart from the board game geeks on a few YouTube channels out there. But it it's a really great way to bring people together, do something in person that doesn't involve a screen. And there's all kinds of games for different ages and skill levels and group sizes and everything. So that's a good thing, particularly if you got maybe a partner or children who, you just all they ever do is look at their screen and we're never really together. Have a board games night. And there's board games cafes out there that are a lot of fun to go to as well. It gives you a break from the screen. So that's a good one. I would read a book, not any book though. I would read specifically
There you go.
this book, which is Four Arguments for the Elimination of Television.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
think of it like four arguments for the elimination of screens,
Yeah.
because this was written in the 70s before smartphones and laptops and all that. So he just used television, but the whole book is about screens, and he goes into detail what happens to the human mind when we spend too much time on screen, when we spend any time on screens, what's going on inside the human when the brain is receiving all this information, whatever it might be. Maybe it's James Bond and he's fighting the bad guys and there's gunfights and action. Your brain's receiving this message that all this action is happening, but your body's just there still inert doing nothing because you're sat staring at a glowing rectangle. And this is a real, like, it's like cognitive dissonance. Your brain is going action, fighting, running around, adrenaline, the subconscious mind that is, and the body's going, I'm sitting on my sofa chilling out eating
Hmm.
some popcorn. And that causes tension, which causes a kind of energy to get built up inside of us. And often you'll see this in children that when they watch a film, if they sit down and watch it afterwards, they'll be like, boom, bouncing off the walls because they have all this energy built up. So it's very curious and interesting to look at what actually happens to the human organism when we are on screens. And that book does an amazing job of explaining that.
Yeah.
So I would read that and throw your television away.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan. Uh, um, another quick question on just the digital. So, in terms of content, like the producing, how do you kind of again balance, if you like, the pressure from algorithms and getting more followers through putting out content with that pressure to dumb down material, if you like, versus trying to be authentic? Again, is that way? How do you? Because I guess what are you up to now? About 1,500 subscribers on YouTube, is that
Yeah,
right?
just
Or,
over
yeah,
1.7. I think we just hit 1.75.
which is
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, so it's just great. So that's brilliant. And so, but again, like, are you? Does it, you have something in the back of your head around kind of, oh, what kind of content I need to be creating, or are you just like, this is the way I'm doing things? I mean, you sound like the way you've talked so far and that we've talked about, you're very authentic anyway. But it's just kind of, does that in the back of your mind think about what I should be doing? Do you get influenced at all by the platforms?
It's a great question. And the bit that I think you nailed in that question is when you said dumbing down, because yeah, I have thought a lot about this. And I was recently in a community and I joined that community with the express intention of turning Hayes Reviews into a business because I want it to be my full-time job. I want to use this project as a way to get myself and my wife out of our jobs so that we don't have to do it anymore. Right. So I have been thinking a lot about how do I turn this into a business and how do I get this to the right people and what is the service, what's the offer, all these kind of questions. And what I realized is that I've never I've never done anything just for the sake of making the numbers go up. Because that's what the game is. It's like make number go up, right? Whatever the number is. And for me, it's always been more about what's important, what's passionate, what am I passionate about, what do I think is gonna help people, and what do I want to do, and just letting it sort of unfold. So everything that I've done and getting to this point has been without a plan or a strategy. It's been just me putting myself out there, and then getting the occasional invitation. Hey, well, let's come and talk to this person, and then you get a few more subs, and then somebody else notices, and it's just been a very organic process without me trying to play the game of making numbers go up. So I haven't worried too much about that. But these days, I'm listening to a lot of Jack Spirko, and he had a one of his I think a law of business is you can improvise your way to success, but only a plan makes it sustainable. And so I kind of feel like I've improvised my way to where I am, but
Mm.
now I need a sort of plan. Now I need to actually put something in place that's going to turn it into a kind of revenue model and revenue stream, while still being authentic to who I am and what I care about and what I want to do. I would love my dream would just be to do a live stream every night. I'll read 5 books, right? We'll do a different one every night of the week, and 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 we'll just have 5 books on the go. And then that would be my dream job. 3 hours
Yeah.
a day.
Yeah.
I'll prep the show and I'll bring it out, and then we'll just make it, and people can follow along with the book they're interested in and watch the replays when they're done. Because all the books that I read get put into the playlist tab, and that's like an evergreen resource now. Anyone can go back and follow along with that series if they're interested in that given book. And I think we've done, I think we're on our 12th book now, maybe. So that would be my dream. But
Yeah.
it's it's also about figuring out a way to help people, and what can I help people with. So I'm working on it. So far I've been improvising it and not worrying too much about the metrics and the numbers. But at this point, I think, okay, I've probably improvised as far as I can go. I might need a bit of structure and a plan.
Mm. So what would you advise to I think you look again, it's sometimes not the what do they say? It's not the destination, it's the journey that you go on.
Mm,
And so again, if you could click your fingers and be to that book every night for 5 days, then you've missed out all of that kind of stuff in between, which it might be hard at times, but it's very very rewarding when you get through that and you've kind of learned from what works and what doesn't, right? So I think that's a cool thing. Oh, I was going to ask you something else there, just related to that, but I can't think what it is now. Oh yeah, so I was going to just ask you, so if someone again was listening to this and they're passionate about something and they're sitting there and they're thinking, well, how do I start? What would you've got any tips for someone that has got a talent or something that they feel that is their calling, but they're scared or they've got financial obligations or so on and so
mhm.
forth. What would you say, or what tips would you give to somebody in that situation?
Great question. I would say you've got everything you need to start, so start. Um, because I started, and if you go back to my earliest videos, you'll see the quality was terrible. There's about 15 pixels on the video. I was using a 12-year-old laptop with a terrible camera and a little headset like this, no mic, no lighting. Um, the audio is bad. You can hear my laptop fan, in the background. It was it was all because that's what I had at the time. I couldn't afford any better equipment, and I just did that. And I shared it in the community I was in, the same one we were both in, and
Yep.
I just said, "Hey, I made this thing," and then about 2 people watched it. One person was like, "I think I was pretty good. Yeah, interesting. I'm gonna, I want to read that book now." I was like, "Oh my goodness, okay, mission accomplished. 2 people watched my thing." So it's like if you've got an internet connection and a device, which we all do pretty much. If you don't, then you're probably not watching or listening to this. If you've got an internet connection and a device, you can get started. And as I said earlier about authenticity, don't worry about the bells and the whistles and the editing and the hook and the making number go up game. Put something out that you believe in, speak from the heart, talk about what you care about, what you're passionate about, and what's important to you, and other people will dig it and vibe with it. Some people will hate it. Some people will, what the hell are you doing? This is so embarrassing. Why do you put that video out? I know you and you're embarrassing me, right? But at the beginning, not many people are going to be watching anyway. And that is actually a bonus. You're not going to, probably not going to go viral with one video that half the world's population is going to see, right? So you just you're building up that momentum, and it's just a case of getting started and keep doing it. There was a time when I was doing three live streams a week, three-hour live streams a week. I was doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it was intense because the book we were reading was pretty long, and I was like, I got to get through this, otherwise it's going to take me forever. And I just dialed it back a little bit now, and I just do one a week, and that gives people a week to catch up and listen to the replay, and it's a bit of an easier pace for people. So you just find out what works for you. But if you're really hesitant and really unsure, and you're kind of analysis paralysis, I would suggest try making a commitment. Something like, I'm going to post every day for a month. Just try that. What do you got to lose? Right? At the end of the month, maybe you'd be like, nobody looked at any of it. Well, you haven't lost anything. If nobody looked at anything you put out, nobody was looking at you before you did it, and nobody looked at you while you did it and after. So no change. But you've got the experience now of getting through and pushing through that fear of like, what are people going to think? What are they going to say? Is anyone looking at it? What am I going to look like? Oh my God, I sound ridiculous. Oh, I look terrible on, all that stuff.
Mm.
And it's worth doing. It is worth doing because you build up your confidence that way, and it's kind of like a stage fright sort of thing. When I was a teacher, experienced terrible anxiety, and I did right up to the day I stopped teaching, of getting in front of a classroom of people and just leading the whole thing and giving instructions and being entertaining and interesting, but also being disciplined with younger students and all the stuff you got to do. Nerve wracking, and I still get nerves, but I'm glad I did it. There were times where I was like on the verge of a panic attack with nerves and anxiety. But I'm so glad that I persevered and went through it and did all those lessons, because it built up my confidence. And same with this kind of thing. It's like the first ones you do, they're not going to be the best thing you ever do. But if you do it every day for a month, that 30th one that you do is going to be leagues ahead of that first one you did. And that's only in a month. So what could you do in a year? What could you do in 5 years? So that would be my advice.
Okay, great. And I guess that's from a content creation. I think it extends to anything that you're passionate about. Really, it's kind of like just start something, right? And you don't have to be spending every minute and every hour on it. You could just start small. And I would also say, yes, the other thing would be is to join a community of like-minded individuals, like Mycelium Hub. But no, but just but get in support of people, a network of people that are supportive of what you're trying to do.
Well,
That aren't gonna just like, rubbish it or anything else, that can give guidance and advice, maybe for some mentorship, but also can be there and just be encouraging, because I think sometimes it can be quite lonely when you're trying to do these things and trying to start up, if people are maybe in some of your closer circles are used to you being somebody else and living a different type of life. When you want to try and do something different, it's like, oh, what, you kidding? Why are you doing that? Why are you giving up everything that you've
mm,
got? And
great
people don't
point.
understand that actually. Well, you know, it's, I'm living someone else's life sometimes. I'm living someone else's expectation of what my life should be, as opposed to what I want my life to be.
Yeah.
So,
I cannot overestimate the importance of what you just said. And I agree 100%. Like the being a part of a community of other people who are trying to do the same thing you're doing is invaluable, to get their feedback, their encouragement, their friendship, the camaraderie. You put something out, and what you'll find is you inspire other people who are sitting on the fence and are a bit scared and nervous too. And they look at your, crummy video. You might think it's crummy, but they'll look at it and go, wow, that's awesome. And if that person can do it, I'm going to give it a go now. You'd be amazed at the synergy that can take place in a group of people who are trying out the same thing with the same sort of goals, aiming in the same direction. It's amazing, the just the kindness, the generosity, the patience, the encouragement, and you'll need that at the beginning, unless you have what Jack Spirko calls irrational exuberance, and that's just within you, like, I'm just going to do this no matter what. you know having a peer group to say, go for it, I want to see that thing, that project that you just described, I want to see you make that. Get in touch with me when you've done it. It can make all the difference versus, yeah, the people who just know you as, you're that person, you do that job, and this is what you say, and this is what you do at the weekend. And whenever you step outside of that, they go, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Right. So yeah, that's a great point. And I really want to underline that. My whole journey, none of it would have happened if I hadn't initially made the initial decision to join an online community based around, well, all sorts of things, but it wasn't just a live streaming community or anything, but it was connecting with the like-minded people, getting to know them, throwing around my ideas, telling them. One of the first things when I joined the that community, I was like, I have no idea what value I've got to offer to the world. I'm worried that I don't have anything to offer. That was one of the first things I said when I went in there. I have no business idea. I have no plan for what I could do. I don't think particularly highly of any of my skills or experience. I've kind of just muddled through improvising as I go. And I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just carried on going with faith that if I keep learning and interacting and talking to people and trying different things, that something would emerge eventually. And that's what's carried me through, just taking action and having a bit of faith in myself and in the bigger picture, that if you take action and you earnestly try to do something to the best of your ability, and you also try and improve it, that's really all you need. And then just keep going, and you'll get there. You'll get somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Great. Right. I think last thing I wanted to talk about, which was obviously you've got so pretty lots of moving parts. You've got your day job still, which we haven't talked about, which we don't want to talk about. Boo for that. So we've got your obviously your Hayes reviews, the new thing on with the screen time. So good luck with kind of how that evolves as well. And obviously you've got something else that's just about coming up as well, and you're going to be a father for the first time as well, just to add another complexity into the mix. So.
Yeah.
Which I think the baby's due any time, so it'd be great to get you on the podcast again in a year's time, and let's see where we are on all of those fronts. But how do you think fatherhood's going to will it affect the way? I mean, you've got your path now.
Mm.
You're on your way, if you like. Do you think that's going to change anything in terms of how you think about tone and priorities?
Ooh, yeah. Well,
You don't know yet.
I'm trying to be open-minded.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not expect anything, so that whatever happens, I can be in the moment and sort of adapt accordingly and deal with it. So I'm really not, I'm not trying to think too far ahead. Um, but what I will say is that the my motivation and drive behind creating Hayes Reviews in the first place was because I want the world to be a better place. I want to help people. I want people to be more aware of reality and how it works and these sort of overlooked or hidden thing aspects of it. I want people to be clearer in their thinking, and have a more accurate understanding of where they are and where they came from and how to move forward in the world. I do view it as a kind of like a mission. It's kind of like my purpose is to do this. I don't know if there's another word for it, but it's sort of like the thing that I'm here to do is to like collect a lot of books and read them to people and help people learn the stuff that's in them and preserve it and pass it on. It's like it's passing it on, and and I do view it as a sort of legacy that I'm trying to build for my son and any future children that may come along after that. I'm really hoping that my offspring will recognize the importance of books and reading and information and preserving that and truth as well. And so I try to align it all so that my parenting and my broadcasts and my work and my role as a husband and a family member to all the various people in my family, all of that is aligned
Mm.
so that there's harmony between my thoughts, my emotions, my actions, and my words. Because I think ultimately that's where we all want to be. That's what we want to aim for. Is this like this alignment of everything we do, think, and feel so that it's coherent and non-contradictory. And so I'm kind of I'm sure I'm going to be going through a lot of feelings over the coming months and years. But I'm really looking forward to the challenge and the growth that it's going to bring, and just the privilege. You know, it's such an honor to be alive during this time, even though it's wild and crazy out there. I feel blessed every day to have my books, to have my channel, to have a beautiful, amazing wife, to have a child on the way. It's like there's so much beauty in the world, and yes, there's a lot of horror, but the beauty is also there and it coexists, and we've got to take both and not just become myopically focused on one or the other, right? That's kind of part of the balance. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how I'm going to juggle it all, but I will find a way.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I like it. And maybe one final question, which is like, you said a lot of the books that you might read, might give you, people, will give people an alternative view, which might not be so positive, right? But what have you read, a book, any book, any of the 12 that you've kind of done on your channel, or any other book for that matter, where you've read something and it's given you that kind of lift, as opposed to like, actually, it's another negative thing because it's another thing that has been created by a small group of people that's caused all this devastation for so many people. Have you ever seen, have you seen a flip side to that anywhere in any of the readings where actually there's been something really, deep humanitarian thing that was unknown to you through this reading?
That's a really good question. Um, I would say it's kind of a yes and no answer. So to me, putting these puzzle pieces together is always an uplifting experience. When I find something or discover something or read something that makes sense and I can slot it into my worldview and go, right, that fits there. And that's why things are the way they are. It's always uplifting because prior to knowing any of this stuff, I thought I was the problem. I thought it was me who was broken. I thought that I was dysfunctional or abnormal in some way because I didn't feel comfortable in this situation, and everyone else seemed to be getting on all fine. You know, they've got their TV and their sports and their jobs, and they just seem to be just fine going about it every day. And I was suffering, you know, emotionally, and I was anxious and depressed and going through all this other stuff. Now that I can actually understand the systems that we've been born into, who designed them, how far back these go, whether it be financial, governmental, cultural, they're all systems. They all have architects and designers. And understanding that and knowing that is incredibly liberating to me because now I'm free to say, oh, it's not me. I'm actually not designed to fit in these systems. They're designed to constrain me,
Hmm.
right? And then you can just flip that around and go, right, I'm not gonna be constrained by these anymore. Sure, physically perhaps, but spiritually and mentally and cognitively, I'm gonna stretch, I'm gonna grow, I'm gonna expand, and hope and aim to also enjoy some of that in the physical domain as well, but it's a little trickier. But yeah, I kind of I see it all as empowering and uplifting. And I mentioned earlier, I try to keep my broadcast lighthearted because I often think one of the best things we can do is laugh. Is really just these systems are so insidious and quite brutal in many ways that if we can kind of be defiant, and be sort of point and laugh and make be cheerful in the face of it. You know, that's like the ultimate rebellion. You know, to still live, to still create, to still be optimistic and take action and work on the things that are important to you. I think that is really what it's all about for me. That's keeping our humanity intact, and keeping our humanity moving forward in systems that are very anti-human. So yeah, I always find that there are moments in the reading where it's quite heavy. Lusitania was one. Accounts of people drowning, of course, and watching loved ones perish is always heartrending. And then I read another book about the UN, and that was quite horrific because it was about UN peacekeeping forces going in and massacring and slaughtering a lot of people in Katanga. So that was horrific too. But sometimes you got to look at this stuff and look at this horror that's being created and just refuse to let it weigh you down, right? It makes you stronger, makes you more emotionally resilient and robust, and which makes you more effective in life. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but that's kind of my approach.
Yeah, I'm not sure it did, but it was a good answer. No, that's fine. Yeah, no, like I think I'm trying to think like if I can reflect on that. Um, it's good I think we talked about this before. It's good to know information that might be hidden from you, right? And so I think that whilst that can sometimes when you first start this process, that can be quite painful because it's like, well, I thought the world was like this, and it was a much more rosy situation, and I thought that everybody, you know, uh, that government and police and people that cared for me, you know, and that they really do care. And actually, when you kind of unwind some of this stuff, it might not be quite as kind of black and white as that. And so once you start to then, open your eyes about it, it does empower you. So I understand the point about uplifting. Um, but I was interested to see there'll be things that you read sometimes you think, oh, I always thought it was a darker thing, but actually there's a light aspect to it as well.
Well, one of the some
And
of the
there's probably quite a lot of other books that are actually out there that talk about the light side of things, and maybe that we try and find those books as well. Uh,
yeah, there are. And
yeah.
if I was to think of the books that give me that sensation, it's been the ones that I've read that have helped me understand myself better. So I mentioned Gabor Mate's book In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost,
Mm,
which I got very interested in because I was having sort of problems with addiction, various things, and I wanted to understand it. So I read that book, and that was quite cathartic because I suddenly understood where my own behaviors and addictions were coming from and was given a way to heal that. And then
mm,
another one that I recommend all the time is a book called Self Therapy by Jay Earley. And in this book, it's literally that self therapy, right? You can sit down and you can go through the practices, and you are given this methodology for going inside, meeting different parts of yourself, and learning to meet them and talk to them and integrate them and heal them, right? Which sounds quite woo woo, maybe. But I've had some profound experiences doing this practice,
mm,
totally sober. Close your eyes in a quiet room, and just focus on your breathing, and you can go internally and meet different parts of yourself, and they have names and they have different appearances,
mm,
and you can get to know them, build relationships with them, and discover connections about things from your past, from your youth, that are driving behaviors and difficulties you're having in the present day. So that's another one. Self Therapy by Jay Earley. These kind of books that help me get to grips with myself,
mm,
who I am, why I am the way I am, why I self sabotage, why I get stuck in analysis paralysis, and why I procrastinate, all problems that I dealt with and continue to deal with. They're really uplifting and empowering as well, because once you do it for yourself, you can then do it for other people.
mm.
And that means, guess what? You got a business. So those kind of books are really useful too. That's just two off the top of my head.
Right.
Oh,
Perfect.
Gabor Mate's book Scattered Minds as well, which is all about ADD. That's another really good one.
Okay. Great. Well, it's been a pleasure, as always, to speak to you. How can our followers then find you? You've got your channel, so do you want to just talk a bit, give people the links or the handles or whatever on how to find you?
Yes. So it's Hayes Reviews. That's Heys
Yep.
reviews, as in book reviews. Hayes Reviews on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. You should be able to type that in. I should pop right up. Sometimes you get reviews for Hayes Luggage. It's a luggage company that makes suitcases out of Canada called Hayes. Uh, but yeah, Hayes Reviews, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. And you can go to allmylinks.com/Hayes Reviews. and that has all my links. It's got everything there, my email address if you want to get in touch. It's got a SoundCloud which has some of my music on it, and all the socials and channels are all there. So that's allmylinks.com/Hayes Reviews. And yeah, if anybody wants to get in touch, I would really like to hear from people. I'm always interested in getting to know people out there who resonate with the message that I'm trying to broadcast. Any feedback, any questions about books, traveling, or otherwise, please do get in touch.
Great. Thank you very much. We didn't get onto your music. We'll do that next time. So you'll have to compose something for the Mycelium Hub podcast for the next you got a year to about a year to think about it. So I-
I'll get working on that in about 364 days. I'll be like, oh shit.
exactly. All
Thanks
right.
for having me on. This has been
Thanks
really
so
good.
thanks so much. Cheers, Nick.